We've also seen time reversal miracles where a body part goes back in time, like 30 years.
Yeah, wow.
So I'm in Nebraska, and the Lord said to me, in heaven there's no time, right? I go, yeah, Lord, I've preached on that. Well, there's a man here about in his 70s. He's had several heart attacks, stents, surgeries. Command his heart to go back 30 years.
Wow.
So I just declare it, not knowing who it is.
Yep.
Then I asked them to check, is there anyone here? And this man comes up. It was him, 72 years old, heart surgeries, even had scars.
Yeah.
Not only was he healed, he didn't feel the stents in his heart. He opened his shirt up, and all the cuts from the surgeries were gone.
What?
And I said, Lord, 30 years back, and that was right a few years before he ever had heart problems. So it's like the sun stood still with Joshua.
Yeah.
So time reversals, so how you do it is you go in the glory realm, as we talked about last show. Now you're in the timeless realm.
Yep.
And then once you're there, you have time travel. You can command things to come back and forth because you're in a timeless realm. And
right.
in my book, Limitless Glory, actually talks about that.
Limitless Glory. I don't even know if we have a graphic for that, but if we do, we should put it up. Because, I totally operate in that realm of time travel.
There it is.
Yeah, there it is, right there. Go get it, guys. DavidHerzogStore.com. Get your copy, Limitless Glory. Because this whole thing about there being the ability to pause time, reverse time, go forward in time. It's in the scriptures. It is. And God wants us to operate in that way. Jesus, it says that, like the man with the crippled hand, he said, stretch forth thine hand, the withered hand. And it says the guy stretched forth and it was totally restored. Well, when you look at the language there, that word stretch forth, it's ektano. And it means to go back to the time something happened, the place it happened, and the cause that made it happen. So when Jesus said, stretch forth thine hand to that man, he was actually going back to the time the hand got withered, the place the hand got
that's a good
withered,
revelation.
and the cause that made the hand get withered, and it got healed back in time at the root.
That's a good revelation.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, this time thing is really amazing. Talk more about what you have like in Limitless Glory. Talk about that revelation.
Well, like Ezekiel 37.
Yeah.
He commanded the bones to come together. So I didn't know this till years ago, that you can actually command physical objects to do stuff.
Wow, come on.
Because how can a bone or a table or your wallet you lost hear you?
Right.
Is it alive? So everything created has atoms, protons, neutrons. Inside that has sound waves.
Wow.
And God put the sound in everything in creation. And that sound wave hears God's commands.
Wow.
And when you're in the glory and you repeat what he says, the sound wave in that object doesn't hear you, it hears God's voice.
Wow.
That's why God told Moses, speak to the rock, it'll turn to water. How does it turn to water? From the core, from the molecular core, sound wave turned to water, and the inside out.
Whoa.
A tooth that was messed up turns to gold from the inside out.
Wow.
A cancer dies from the inside out. Speak to the tree, and he said die, and it withered.
Right.
Wind and waves. So everything created.
Speak to the mountain, it'll be thrown into the sea.
So Ezekiel 37, bones come together.
Right.
And the bones, and it knew even which bone to reconnect to. It had cellular memory.
Right. Wow.
And then the looking
cellular memory.
And then the looking realm is now look at it. And it is looking, and then skin appears. So there's the speaking and the looking. So you get in the glory realm. And so then we have this faith. I lost my wallet. I said, I know you can hear me because there's no distance in the glory. I know that.
Right.
I know you're made of atoms, protons, neutrons, inside sound waves.
Yeah, even though it looks solid, there's still atoms, protons, and neutrons in it.
Come back. And I've had a watch come back from China back to Sedona that was left in the hotel. I've had my wallet reappear. Floating axe head, Old Testament. Remember the floating axe head came back up?
Wow.
So this realm, when you have revelation with the glory, it's an accelerator. If you go to heaven right now and you lost an arm, you'd have an arm when you get back.
Right.
If you were overweight, you'd be skinny. If you had a big cancer, the moment you got to heaven, you'd be healed, right? It wouldn't take 5 minutes.
Right. Wow.
So when heaven's glory comes here, that same speed, let your will be done on earth in my body as it would be had I just walked into heaven.
Oh my God.
That's what thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven means. How much debt would you have when you got to heaven? None.
Zip. Zero.
You left it for your spouse maybe,
Right.
but you're good. So get life insurance or something. I don't know.
Okay, this is real, guys. This is real. Okay, we have to understand something. This Hebrews 1:2 in the Amplified Classic, it says that Jesus is the lawful owner of all things, and he created the world, the reaches of space, and the ages of time. He built, operated, produced, and arranged them in order. So in the glory realm, all the ages of time are there. You know, the past, the future, the present. So when you ascend into the glory realm by worshiping God, by praising Him, by getting still and listening for Him, you can actually ascend into that place in the glory where you can access the past. You can go back to where Jesus said, stretch forth thine hand, and He went back to the time the hand was withered, the place that got withered, and the cause that made it withered. Every location in space and time is in the glory realm. So when you worship and you get up in the glory through your worship, you're going to be able to access all those things and go forward in time to bring your promises into your now, go back in time to correct things that happened to you. I found out that you can never change the event. You can never stop that event from happening, but you can go back and fix the consequences.
Exactly.
From that event.
Exactly.
Right.
Just like someone gets healed of a past issue in their life and all the scars, you go hit the root, they get deliverance, they get healed, and all of a sudden the scars and their emotions are healed. They don't have the triggers, they don't have the event happen, but they don't have the results of it.
Right, they don't have that, like you said, the triggers. All of a sudden they'll think about that thing, that accident or that divorce or whatever, and they don't feel the same, pain.
Exactly.
They don't feel the same reaction. They don't get their buttons pushed.
Exactly.
When somebody talks to them about it anymore.
Exactly.
Because we've actually gone back in time to where it happened to them.
But even on Earth, time is interesting. So being transported physically, I've been transported driving my car.
Yep.
Linear time is 8 hours across France from the northwest to northeast. And we were worshiping the glory. We were getting lighter and lighter. And in an hour and a half, we were at our destination.
Yeah, wow.
So let me show you a piece of paper here.
Okay, go.
How it works. So here, let's see this paper.
Yep.
This is my car here.
Yep.
Wait, what?
Oh, yeah, they'll shoot you right here.
Oh, yeah,
Go ahead.
this is my car right here.
Yep.
This is my destination.
Yep.
8 hours.
Right.
But because we're here worshiping and glory is coming, glory, there's no time.
Right.
The timeless realm gets closer and closer to my car. Point A and point B starts to bend.
Yeah, there you go.
And all of a sudden, there's no time. So God bends the time continuum in the glory.
Right.
So it happens at super speed. That's why the miracles happen super speed. The finances happen super speed. There's no time in the glory. So the time reverses over body parts, over like Philip being transported geographically.
Yeah.
Or things that should be in your destiny that take 20 years is happening in the same year.
Right.
There's just an acceleration in that realm of time and space. Isn't that cool?
Yeah, it is. I mean, Jesus ripped through the fabric of space-time. The fabric of space-time is a real thing, okay?
Yeah.
It's like this invisible fabric that we can't see. This has been proven by NASA, by experiments with Gravity Probe B, that this actually exists. But it acts like a giant trampoline. Like, weights of planets and stuff can bend it, stretch it,
Yeah.
and all that. And when that happens, then time can collapse, time can reduce. When, like you just said, you just showed the bending of the fabric of space-time. And Jesus already went through the fabric for us. That's why it says when He died on the cross.
For the joy set before Him.
Yeah, right. The curtain, which is what's the curtain made out of fabric, was ripped from the top to the bottom.
Yeah.
So, He's given us the right to be able to bend space-time and to be able to shorten time, to accelerate time. Look, Hezekiah, time went backwards. 10 steps on the sundial of Ahaz. What happened when Joshua? He said, sun stand still in the midst of heaven. Moon stay in the valley of Ajalon. And the sun stood still and moon stayed until Joshua took revenge on all his enemies. A lot of times God gives us mastery over time so that we can take revenge over our enemies.
Well, we're seated in heavenly places, right? So if you go to your heavenly seat and sit there and then pray and decree, you're above time.
Right.
But you have to get up there or else then you're bound. You're not in that realm. You get above time, and now there's a time, and then when the people say, well, when did Jesus die on the cross? So we say 2,000 years ago. But then the Bible says, before the foundations of the earth he was slain. Well,
Right.
that would be before Genesis. But then when the prophet saw by his stripes we were healed, he saw that thousands of years before the cross. So time on earth is not, we think it's linear. Heaven is circular. Jesus about to go to the cross, and he goes, oh, for the joy set before him, as if he already been there, he rejoiced. He already
Right.
saw the outcome.
Wow.
He knows the end from the beginning.
It's true. It's true. And we have to understand something. It's like God has done this. Jesus has given us the ability to do this by ripping the fabric of space-time so that we can see all the provision that God has for us, and we can see the miracles that God has for us. Okay, so, I want to go back to, Hezekiah. And the sun going backwards 10 steps on the sundial of Ahaz, it said. Why is that important? The sundials, there was a lot of sundials in Jerusalem at that time. That's how people told time.
Around the world. Yeah.
Right. So now, Ahaz, his father, it's Hezekiah's father, Ahaz, he had built a sundial. So it was called the sundial of Ahaz. And why was God saying, the sun's going to go back 10 steps on the sundial of Ahaz? Because Ahaz was a big, huge idolater.
Yeah.
And so that had created problems in the future for Hezekiah. In fact, the first thing Hezekiah did when he became king was he cleaned out all the idols and all the altars. But and then he got sick himself, and then he got attacked by the Assyrian army and all this other stuff. And God was saying, this is a miracle. I'm going to give you 15 more years of life. I'm going to destroy the Assyrian king, and I'm going to save Jerusalem. And this is going to be the sign. The sign is that I'm going to go back 10 steps. The sunlight's going to go back 10 steps on the sundial of Ahaz. Meaning, I'm going to go back on your bloodline. Go back in time on your bloodline, Hezekiah, to where your father opened up the door to these attacks, to this sickness that's on you, to this assault on Jerusalem through his sin, through his idolatry. And a lot of you right now are dealing with stuff that's generational. It happened, your parents started it. And you're dealing with the repercussions and the consequences right now. But if you understand this precept about being able to go into the glory, and where all time and space is available to you, and you can go back anywhere in time and space to a place where something started in your bloodline, then you can wipe it out. I had that happen to me too. I actually had my legs start shrinking down. I was losing all my muscle tone, and I was like, what is this guy? And he goes, go back in time on the sundial of your parents, because that's where your limbs started getting decimated. So I started researching it, and I looked up, and I think it's in Chronicles or Kings. It says that it went back, the shadow went back 10 steps. That word shadow means decimated limbs.
Wow.
Decimated limbs. So when I went back, I came to the root, I saw it, I applied the blood of Jesus to it, and then from that moment on, my legs started growing in diameter an inch every month.
Wow.
3 inches I've gained so far without even working out or anything.
Well, part of what you said interesting about Hezekiah is there's another part to that. How did he get to the point where God granted him his wish to live longer? And the Lord showed me the revelation on that. So there was idolatry. He destroyed the pagan altars, but then he rebuilt the godly altars.
Yes.
Secondly, here's the big one right here. He restored the feast of Israel.
Wow.
The feasts are God's way of keeping you in his timing.
Yes.
So when you don't celebrate the feast, we're out of time. And so he said, and one of the 7 blessings on most of the feasts is long life. There's an angel goes before you. There's provision. There's I'll take sickness from you, and I will in long life. So he basically claimed. He said, Lord, hey, I destroyed the pagan altars. He said, you're going to die. The Lord told him, you're going to die. And he negotiated. He goes, wait, Lord, I restored the feast. I got rid of the pagan altars. In the feast is long life. That's one of the promises from God. So he claimed that, basically, because he said, I restored the feast back.
Come on.
And so I'm supposed to have long life. And all of a sudden, God shifted and it goes, okay, 15 more years.
Wow.
So he got into, so the feast is God's way of keeping us in heaven's time. People say, what is that? So in heaven, I found out when I was during the feast, I was laying out in the spirit, I got taken to heaven.
Yeah.
And I saw the pageantry in heaven during the feast was totally different than normal times. So when you stop, let's say Passover, Pentecost, Feast Tabernacles, you stop and take that week and be with the Lord and gather with God's people, you actually are syncing with what's going on specifically at that time in heaven. So you get the download of all the blessings, all the gifts, all the glory. You miss the feast, you miss the next 6 months of your life, because that's the direction for the next season. So if you miss the feast, they were agricultural, they were farmers, right? They said, if you do this, go to the feast, give the offering, worship me, hear the word, you'll have rain, which means you'll have prosperity in your ministry, your business. If you don't have rain, there's no crops, there's no food. So you go through dry seasons when you don't hit so that's also redeeming the time.
See, I had no idea, first of all, that there was pageantry, like in heaven, specifically on the feast days. So heaven is massively celebrating the feast.
And that's why he says, do it, because I want you to sync with what I'm doing in heaven at that specific time.
And when you sync, guys, when you sync with heaven, what are you doing? You're tapping into the fact that, Jesus created all the reaches of space and the ages of time. So you can tap into any time. You can go in the future. If you're in syncing with heaven's time, and that's one of the ways to do it is through the feast, right? That means that you can tap into going into the future and grabbing something that wouldn't normally happen for a year, 5 years, 10 years, whatever, and bringing it back into your now. I've done that before.
Yeah, well, and even in Zechariah, when the Lord returns after the tribulation, after all that, the 1,000-year reign, it says every nation will have to come back to Jerusalem, celebrate the feast of booths. So you think, well, that shows you it's not just a Jewish thing for just Jewish people. It's not just Old Testament. He says keep the feast now and in the future. It's going to be eternal. Even the Gentile nations will have to come up to celebrate. But the difference is he'll be the reason for the season. It's Jesus.
Wow, come on.
Even Passover, it's to celebrate Jesus as our lamb.
Yeah, I mean, it's all foreshadowing of Christ.
Exactly.
The Old Testament feasts all foreshadowed everything Christ would do.
And you're in time.
Yeah.
And you're in God's time. So sometimes you feel like you're getting behind in things in your life. Celebrate the feast, you'll catch up.
Realign.
You'll be in time.
Realign.
And also, those who eat my flesh, drink my blood shall never die. There's a level of it where you're unkillable until the Lord allows you. Like Paul, they couldn't kill him. John, island of Patmos, couldn't kill him. They couldn't kill them unless it was the time.
Right.
And even if you're going to go, you can be so close to God, you can have a negotiation with the Lord like Hezekiah. Paul wrote, should I stay or should I go? I think it's better for you that I stay, but I'd rather go. Basically, he had an option. God was saying, you've done what I told you. Would you want to come home now or do you want to stay?
Right.
So even death, there's no fear. You could be unkillable in the last days, or you could choose, if the Lord allows you, hey, do you think it's your time to go?
Right.
That's the relationship we have with him.